Hallo, willkommen bei Kansas. Ich bin herzlich eingeladen worden von James direkt nach England. Und wir möchten zum allerersten Mal ein gemeinsames Video auf Deutsch und Englisch drehen und hoffen, dass es euch gefällt. Und wir hoffen auch, dass wir es zusammen hinkriegen. Es ist unser erstes Mal zusammen hier. Wir möchten euch gerne erklären, wie die 10Scenes installiert und auch bespielt werden. Ja, hello James. Thank you for inviting me here to Southampton. And we started to explain the installation of the 10Scenes.
So with MagicQ.
With MagicQ, not with QuickQ, yeah. That is another video later. And I say, please start.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what we've got here first. So we've got two 10Scene wall plates, and they're plugged into our 10Scene gateway box here. The 10Scene gateway box has two 10Scene ports, and you can connect up to 20 10Scenes to it. So it's 10 10Scenes per each port, and you can daisy chain them, a bit like DMX on fixtures, but a maximum of 10 in a chain. And there are some specs on the cable, so we use Cat5 cable, and if you just had one 10Scene wall plate, you can run it up to about 1,000 meters. It reduces if you do 10, it's about 300 meters. So great for installations in quite large environments. We then have the gateway box here, which on the back of it, we've just got power input. Now you can power it via PoE over network.
Yep.
But we have our network cable here, then just going to our laptop here, which is running MagicQ. Now the gateway box is used to convert from our 10Scene protocol to our Camsys Ethernet remote protocol. So worth noting that this side, while we use network cable to connect the wall plates, you can't network this as part of your building network. It's using the cable but dedicated to go straight from these ports to your wall plates. Whereas on this side, this can be on your lighting network. So this is outputting our Camsys remote protocol, and you then network it up to your control system. So that could be a PC or a laptop, or it could indeed be a MagicQ or a QuickQ console you can use the gateway with.
Ja, das ist viel, that's much. So, kurz in Deutsch, wir haben hier, wie gesagt, das Gateway. Das Gateway könnt ihr anschließen sowohl an jegliche Konsolen, QuickQ-Konsolen, ihr könnt es anschließen an unsere MagicQ-Konsolen, an einen PC. Wichtig, um die in der PC-Version dann auch zu betreiben, ist, dass ihr den Demo-Mode freischaltet. Wir haben jetzt hier in unserem Beispiel zwei 10Scene Wallplates, die wir hier über die Ports bespielen. Diese Ports sind angeschlossen mit einfach 4 Drähten für einmal Power und einmal Daten. Und wir gehen dann hinten raus übers Ethernet Remote Protokoll direkt zur MagicQ. I think I make it a little bit shorter. And that's the thing, that is only the installation between. You have 10 10Scenes per, 10 10Scenes per port?
Per port, yeah.
Yeah, so 10 Wallplates per Port, ihr habt 20 per Port. Aber ihr könnt natürlich auch mehrere Gateways in euren Netzwerk einbinden und das Gateway kann egal wo in eurer Installation installiert sein. Ja, und dann kommen wir zu dem, wie wir es in der Software dann allocaten. Shall I start with the software?
Yeah. Did you mention though that when you're using it with a PC system, the gateway box doesn't unlock the software from demo mode, so we've got a rack mount dongle connected here. You need some blue hardware on the system to unlock that. That could be one of our Snexus nodes, or something that will take it out of demo mode. This box won't do it on its own. But let's look at what you can do in the software with these.
Ja, wenn wir halt zu MagicQ dann gehen, ihr kennt allgemein die Oberfläche der MagicQ, dann gehen wir einmal hier in unserem Setup. Wenn wir im Setup sind, dann geht ihr bitte auf Fuse Settings und dann unter Ports könnt ihr eure Gateways und eure Einstellungen auch für die Behandlung der 10Scenes einstellen. Und zwar habt ihr hier unten zwei Reiter und der erste ist halt, hier haben wir 4 verschiedene Möglichkeiten. Disabled ist natürlich klar, wenn wir im Disabled sind, dann sind sie deaktiviert, auch wenn sie angeschlossen sind, dann gibt es keine Funktion. Inbuilt ist, also eingebaut ist, momentan nur im MagicQ-Bereich für die MQ250M. Es folgen da noch weitere Ideen und Inbuilt und Gateway ist natürlich dann über das Gateway. Wir haben noch zusätzlich eine Möglichkeit über eine Remote, aber zu dieser Möglichkeit kommen wir dann einfach später. Das heißt, wir arbeiten jetzt einfach mal mit Inbuilt and Gateway, weil wir haben das Gateway dran. Und dann gibt es verschiedene Einstellungen, also Aktionen, die wir durchführen können. Ich komme später da noch zu diesen einzelnen Funktionen. Wir lassen das zuerst mal auf Playback 1 to 10. So Playback 1 bis 10, um euch jetzt zu zeigen, wo finde ich denn mein Gateway und wo finde ich meine 10Scene Buttons. Plates.
Wallplates.
Wallplates. 10Scene Wallplates. So, ihr geht einfach in Makro. No, sorry, wir müssen first get VDMX.
Yep.
Sorry, was too quick. In the Net Manager. And here in the Net Manager, you see all gateways. So you see your IP address here. And when the IP address is changed to 10.00, you see it here. And you can change the IP address directly in the Net Manager.
I think these ship from Camsys with a 10.IP address.
Okay.
So be aware, we've custom set our IP address to 2. To match our network we've got here. You might need to do the same when you're set up as well.
Ja. So, könnt ihr also hier direkt vergeben. Ihr seht alles, Namen vergeben. Und,
Ja.
Okay. Dann geht ihr einfach unter Makros, also unter unser Makrofenster. Und hier haben wir dann unter Few Automations, wie ihr seht, haben wir hier die Few 10Scenes. Ich hätte direkt den Button auch wählen können.
Ja.
Und hier seht ihr dann unsere 10Scenes. Diese 10Scenes haben die ID 1 und 2. Warum, was das bedeutet, da kommen wir dann gleich noch zu. Wichtig vielleicht, ihr könnt jetzt diese 10Scenes, diese IDs verändern. Das ist wichtig, wenn ihr 10, 20 10Scenes benutzt, um dann auch die IDs wirklich Räumen und Zonen zuzuordnen. Das geht relativ einfach. Man kann einmal eine ID resetten. Ja? Das heißt, wenn ich hier diese ID resette, dann kommen automatisch diese 10Scene, das ich gerade markiert habe, wieder zurück zu der Factory ID. Wenn ich Shift drücke, also einfach Shift drücke, dann kann ich alle 10Scenes in einem Row wieder zurücksetzen. Muss man aber nicht. It's not, you must do it.
You shouldn't need to use
You
it.
shouldn't do it. Ihr könnt direkt hier einfach auf Programm 10Scene gehen und dann, James,
Yeah, and when you're
where's
in
it?
programming mode, you can see that it flashes blue, and then it shows you the ID. So that one's number 1, and this one will flash blue, and show me that that's ID number 2. Now we're in programming mode, you can set the ID. Now, if Frank had pressed the reset ID button, the factory IDs are longer than 1 digit, so it'd be a 4 or 5 digit ID, and you'd see it going blue and then going at 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the default ID is. If you've already reset them, to program the ID, you press your 4 buttons on the edges, 1, 6, 5, 10, once press, and then you tap the number you'd like the ID to be. So I want that to be number 1. It would flash and it would take that ID. Now, we're going to show you first off just using it to control Playmax 1 to 10 and an Xcube grid. When you're doing that, you don't actually need to worry about setting the IDs. The IDs are relevant in a moment when we'll go into using zoning and actually having wall plates to control different areas of a room or a venue space. And that's when you're going to want to use your IDs. So you know how to set your ID, and we can go on and look at maybe how we use them.
I think important when the customer set the ID that we explain that is really a short pressing, like a mouse click, and not a long holding, then it has no functionality. Also es ist, wie gesagt, wenn ihr die ID der 10 Scenes verändern wollt, 1, 6, 5 und 10 drücken, kurz drücken wie ein Mausbutton und nicht lange halten, dann funktioniert das nicht. Die IDs brauchen wir später. Wir zeigen euch zuerst Playback 1 bis 10. Da sind die IDs für die Plates hinfällig. Das brauchen wir dann nicht. Das kommt dann in den späteren Sachen. Okay?
Yep. So we've set our IDs, and it's worth saying that we have done, I'm afraid it's only in English, another YouTube video where we actually go through the physical wiring up of the wall plates, how you wire them, and how you can reset and wire in a bit more detail. So we can find that, but that's for another day. So if we come out of programming mode and we turn shift off, so our wall plates are back on again. So we go to setup, where Frank already mentioned in view settings, ports, we have our 10Scene action. What's the 10Scene going to control? And you can see here it's set to playbacks 1 to 10. Now in this mode, any 10 scenes in your network will control playback 1 to 10. So you could have maybe a room that's got 3 different doors into the venue, a wall plate by each door, and they all control the same thing. So here I've got 2 wall plates. We saw earlier we set this one to ID 1, this one to ID 2, but we're in a mode where they all do the same. So if I press button 9 here. You can see in our visualizer we've got, you see over on the screen, our cycle lights at the back have turned blue.
Yeah.
And if I go and press this one here, activates over there, and I can deactivate with this button here.
So, die 10 Scenes im Playback-Mode 1 bis 10, wie gesagt, bedienen dann die Playbacks 1 bis 10 und sind bidirektional. Ihr könnt an jeder Plate ein- und ausschalten und das ist eigentlich alles, was Playback 1 bis 10, Entschuldigung, manchmal mixen wir etwas die Sprache, was wir mit Playback 1 bis 10 tun. Der zweite, the second mode.
Yeah, so straightforward. The other option you've got is execute 1, and it does what it says, execute grid 1. So open our execute window. Here's one we made earlier. You can see page 1, execute grid 1, and we've made, by set grid size, we've made a 10 by 1 grid, and we've recorded some items into that grid. Again, all of our wall plates do the same function. They all control execute grid 1. Now, the advantage of using an execute over playbacks is you can quickly solo things.
Yeah.
So in the middle here, items then 4, 5, and 6, we've set our cycle lights to. So I can go turn them on in yellow on this button here. And again, you can see it's active on both wall plates. I've set the buttons in my execute window here to be solo buttons on the item type here, which means only one next to each other can be active. And that takes the same on our wall plate. So on this one, if I press button 5, you can see is my cycle lights in magenta, but it has released the one next to it, so only one can be active in those 3 there. Now I've left a gap and not all of them are solos, so I've got my spots for the stage, my cycle lights, and my house lighting split up, so I can have independent control. So I can go and turn on the house lights here, or turn them off. I already had them on, dim them down, or whatever I want to do with them, and again they will work separately to the cycle lights.
Ja. Vielleicht auch nochmal in Deutsch. Es ist so, ihr habt den Vorteil, wenn ihr auf der Executor-Page arbeitet, auch jetzt sind beide bidirektional. Das heißt, was ich auf dem einen Plate tue, passiert auch auf dem anderen. Der Vorteil ist einfach, dass es existiert auch Executor-Video. Ihr könnt halt jede einzelnen Button hier zu einem Solo-Button machen. Das heißt, ihr aktiviert. Das heißt, wenn ich einen anschalte, geht der andere automatisch aus. Das ist ein Riesenvorteil. Und I have 10 Playbacks for Mini-Wing. Ihr könnt einfach dann mit den 10 Playbacks auch vielleicht nochmal eine Stage mit beleuchten, sodass ich da nochmal ein bisschen mehr Möglichkeiten habe. Ja, that's Executor 1.
That's simple.
That's simple.
Let's do a shift release and just switch everything off quickly. It's away. And let's say, so we have our room, which you can see up on the screen now. Let's say though that's a typical ballroom, and maybe they put an air wall in. So like so now, you can see we've put an air wall in the room, and that doesn't work so well if we're just in execute 1 mode, because now we're essentially 2 rooms, and you go to the wall plate on that side, and the people on that side get frustrated because you've turned the lights off. So
it's a nice animation. Is it from our visualizer?
It is MagicViz.
Yeah, that's cool. Really cool.
So this is where we bring in what we call zones. So back to setup, view settings, ports, 10Scene action. We've got some other options: exec 1 multi, exec 1 groups, exec grids. We'll talk you through the 3 options. But let's start with groups.
Yeah, groups. You explain the groups, that I understand the groups, and then I try to explain it to the people.
So now it's important to mention the idea of your wall plates now is very important because we're using zones. So you remember we went to the macro window before, view 10Scene, and we used the program 10Scene button to set the ID of the wall plates. This is ID 1, this is ID 2, and of course if I had more wall plates, maybe other doors, I could set them to different IDs if I wanted. So I've got my ID 1, ID 2 wall plates. I've set in settings here, exec 1 groups. Now what it looks for is for me to go to my group window and build some groups with the names zone 1, zone 2, etc., etc. So if I had 10 zones, I'd make a group zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, etc., 10 different groups. As you can see here in my group window, group 20 I've called zone 2, and group 21 zone 1. So it doesn't actually matter the group ID number. What's really important is the group name.
Ja, the group, also wenn ihr Gruppen erstellt mit Zone 1, Zone 2, ihr seht auf dem Visualizer, dass wir einmal haben die rechte Seite und einmal die linke Seite. Das sind die 2 unterschiedlichen Gruppen, Die IDs, die wir hier gesetzt haben, 1 und 2, greifen jetzt auf diese Zone 1 und Zone 2 zu, sodass wir wirklich das Ganze geteilt haben. Nun könnt ihr eine Wallplate linke Seite und eine Wallplate rechte Seite.
Yeah, so in these groups, we pre-built them earlier, but if I open select group 21, you can see in our visualizer here, all of the lights on the left side of the room have highlighted red, and on this side, all of the lights on the right side of the room. Now, you can still, of course, have those fixtures in other groups. All we're doing is we're putting into a group all of the fixtures or the lights that are going to be in each zone. We make into one big group. You can have them in individual groups for programming. That's absolutely fine. But for our zoning to work, you put them all in there, that group, and you just call it zone 1, zone 2, etc. Now we've done that, it's going to control our execute window. So in our execute window, we haven't changed our programming from a moment ago. The programming, if I go to Cyc Yellow and view item and view queue, contains all of the cyc lights, the ones that are on both sides of the room. By using our groups, we differentiate which parts, essentially we filter when we activate the queue, which lights come on based on what's in the group. So now if I go back to my execute window, I've set myself in this zone mode. So if I press button 1 here, you can see it's only turned on the lights in one side of my room. And if I go to the wall plate on this side and I press, say, button 9, turns on the lights in the other side of the room. So these wall plates are now working independently, allowing me to have different lighting states on each side, like so.
Genau. Also wir haben im Endeffekt die gleiche Programmierung wie gerade, nur dass die Programmierung, es wurde alles mit allen Lampen, you erase it. So again, when I include, sorry, it's English. Wenn ich einen Queue inkludiere, seht ihr, ich habe alle Lampen von links und rechts in dem Programmer. Da wir aber die Zonen benannt haben, Zone 1, Zone 2, weiß MagicQ, dass die linken Lampen Zone 1 und die rechten Lampen jetzt in dem Bereich Zone 2 sind. Und dadurch kann die Konsole das einfach abrufen und auf der Executor-Page habt ihr dann links und rechts. Aber es gibt auch eine Möglichkeit to join.
Yeah, so what happens then, exactly as Frank said, if we get our animation in Magic Viz again, and you see now the air wall comes out again.
Cool.
And we're back to one big room, but our wall plates are still working independently, the left and the right side of the room. I don't want to have to run to the door there and press there and run back there. It's one room again now. Nor do you want to reprogram your system. It's a bad idea. So if we go to our macro window in MagicQ and we go to view zones, you can see all of the zones that you've got set up. Now, the zone ID is in the column on this side. So we have zone 1, zone 2. We're only using 2 zones here, so we're going to look at those. And we go across, you can see there's a join zone column and a switch status. And the switch status, you can see for zone 2 is separated. Now you see this is grayed out for zone 1 because the way we work in this mode is we join to the zone above. So we would join zone 2 to zone 1.
Yeah.
Zone 1 has nothing above it to join to. Zone 3 would join to zone 2, etc. And it tells you the zone here that it's going to join you to. So I'm on zone 2. If I join it, it's going to join to zone 1. So if I double click here and change this to joined, what now happens is it joins together zone 1 and 2 and the wall plates now work together. So if I switch off some lights here, turn all the lights off in the room, then come to this button here, I can switch them back on and it's doing all of the lights in both sides of the room, as you can see there.
Ja, also vielleicht auch da nochmal, wir haben den Raum halt zusammengelegt, so wie es ja oft gerade in einem Hotel, in einem Ballsaal oder so passiert, dass einmal wird die eine Seite nur vermietet, manchmal der ganze Saal. Man kann hier dann einfach in den Zonen, also wieder in Makro und dann Few Zones, hier könnt ihr dann einfach sagen, ich möchte, dass die Zone 2 zusammen mit der Zone 1 ist. Ihr könntet auch sagen Zone 3 zusammen mit Zone 2. Also ihr könnt die Räume auch immer weiter erweitern. Ne? Und dann im Endeffekt habt ihr dann wieder die unterschiedliche Plates, aber sie sind wieder miteinander verbunden und so habt ihr wieder einen Raum. Und wenn der Raum wieder zugemacht wird, einfach wieder die Zone separieren und dann habe ich wieder alles getrennt. Ja, I think that's, I hope it's clear. I don't know. Nobody asked us. It's not live. Yeah.
So, when you take your zones and you join or separate, we don't expect that there's going to be a skilled operator there. The installer You don't have to be there every time they take the air wall in and out.
Yep.
So it's worth mentioning, and we're going to cover it in more detail in our next video when we look at the advanced configuration. But just to mention at this point, your 10Scene wall plates, there's a spare pin on each socket which you can use as a contact close switch to the ground pin on there. So you could have just a basic light switch on the wall or something, or a trigger switch, even a micro switch built into the air wall itself. And we can set that as an automation in MagicQ, so that when the switch is open or closed, it automatically changes that switch status from joined to separated. So you don't have to have a technical operator there to set this joining of zones open or closed together. We can automate that to happen based on a contact close event or other things. But we're going to look at that in our more advanced one, but to mention it.
Genau. Wie James bereits sagte, wir haben hier jeweils zwei zusätzliche Anschlüsse für einen Kontakt pro Ausgang. Und dieser Kontakt kann eben jeglicher Schalter sein, den ich in eine Installation einbaue. Und mit einem Kontakt kann ich eine Automation auslösen, die dann automatisch diese Zonen zusammenführt. Und es muss kein Techniker kommen, sondern das kann jeder Hausmeister machen oder auch jeder Hotelangestellte. Everyone, a cleaner, everyone can do it.
Good. So, other modes that we've got exec1 multi to talk about, and exec grids. Now, if we go to exec1 multi, exec1 groups that we were using before is great, but it's common programming. Exec1 multi allows me to have different programming for the lights on each side. So the idea then, if I go exec1 multi here, and I go back to my execute window, I would still be programming on execute page 1, but I change my grid size now. So if I make that a 10 width by 2 height, this is going to be zone 1, and this is going to be zone 2. So when I'm setting my grid, the height of a grid, or how many rows it is going to differentiate the number of zones I can have. So if I did a 10 by 10 grid, it's going to be 10 zones essentially each way. But I've just gone for 10 by 2 to give me 2 different zones here. Now this is now going to activate the execute items rather than filtering by the fixture type or anything.
Ja, das ist einfach, wenn ihr auf diese Executor Multi geht, ist jede Reihe für sich sozusagen eine Zone oder eine ID. I try to say zone is ID, it's a little bit the same. Sodass ihr halt 10, 15, 20 theoretisch Plates auch zusammenschalten könnt und dann eben diese Plates hier unabhängig voneinander arbeiten. Das heißt, ich habe Zone 1 hier oben. Ja, das heißt, hier, wenn ich drauf presse, ist oben. Und ich kann auch sagen, copy. Sorry, I copy a queue.
No.
No?
No, go for it. Yeah, please do, yeah.
Okay. Ich habe auf dem zweiten nun den 10er. Es ist gelinkt.
We left it joined.
Yeah.
So we skipped.
We just left to join. Yeah.
Yeah. So
separate.
maybe we should separate them. Maybe.
No, it's the same. It's the same queue.
Yeah.
It's the same queue.
We should have just if we record blank queues.
Yes. So we link a queue.
Yeah.
So is another video.
It's the same one queue. Yeah.
So wenn ich hier jetzt drücke, dann habe ich hier jetzt separat von der anderen Reihe das Ganze zum Freischalten. Das ist ziemlich einfach, um zum Beispiel ein Club, Diskothek with a smoker room, Bar, Smoker Room. So, dann kann ich mir sagen, eine Reihe Smoker
Different
Room.
programming in each room. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to install. Yeah.
Yep. The other mode of operation is exec grids. In exec grids mode, allows you just to separate this up. Now, this could be more useful if you've got maybe not just 10 scenes, but you maybe have someone who's operating a little bit as well, or using the apps. And the way this works, then it's done by the grids. So we would make ourselves a 10 by 1 grid here, and that is page 1, zone 1. We go to page 2, and we set ourselves a 10 by 1 grid, page 2, zone 2.
Yeah.
We went to page 3, zone 3. So here, if I record just some blank items there, 1, 2, 3, page 2 is going to appear here on wall plate ID 2, and page 1 is going to be my wall plate number 1.
Ja, genau, Executor Multi, da habt ihr Executor Grids, that's Executor Grids, programmiert ihr einfach, die IDs sind sozusagen die Nummer des Grids. So it's easy when I program it not in the first 2, 3, so better 20, 21 or so. Wenn ihr das weiter nach hinten setzt, kann man natürlich die ersten Seiten schön fürs Programmieren, normales brauchen, Executor Grid, Use Makros, use Play and Pause. Ja, also wenn ihr zum Beispiel Play and Pause gerne benutzt auf der Executor Seite 1 und ihr wollt gleichzeitig mit der Konsole arbeiten, aber im Hintergrund Hauslicht anmachen lassen, dann empfiehlt es sich, diese Version zu nehmen.
And worth mentioning for both of these modes we've looked at, so for both exec grids and exec 1 multi, in the same way as we did with groups, you can join the zones together. So you can still have the concept of, okay, well, I've got different programming in the bar, in the club, wherever, but I want to at some point be able to join it all together. Now when you join, it's going to activate, say I was in exec multi where it's going in rows, it will do that whole column all together. So all the different programming in the different zones, you can have a button to activate them all at the same time.
So I have a question. Can I create an automation with a MIDI button
MIDI
to
button?
join the zone?
Yes, you can, yeah.
So, also ihr müsst nicht unbedingt den Verschlusskontakt nehmen, manchmal habt ihr einfach einen kleinen MIDI-Button.
Oder DMX-Input oder
irgendwas. Also die Möglichkeit dieser Automation, um die Gruppen und um die Zonen zusammenzusetzen, muss nicht unbedingt über den Kontakt sein, sondern eben auch über jegliche andere Auslösegeschichten, die wir im Programm haben, wie eben DMX-In oder
So that's sort of the basic setup. Now, great, you've got your wall plates on the wall. We've got this in our control room somewhere or wherever it might be. But to mention, you can control things from the wall plates remotely as well. So you can go into your 10Scene, so your zone view, and you can go and you can actually change and activate things directly from the window. And so if you want, the operator wants to override or whatever, you can go and do that from the window here without having to go physically to the wall plate and press the button.
That was.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening or for showing our video. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you.
When you have questions, our support lines are open for you every day.
Yeah, email, phone.
Yes, all open. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.